Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to invite you again to stay a half hour with us today. This is the Future Kings program. This is a monthly program where we talk about the Future Kings program and things in the county that affect the Future Kings. For those of you that are not aware, Future Kings are a nonprofit organization that has been approved by the IRS as a 501c3 approved charity. We believe that we are creating great futures for the young men in the county, and we do that through STEM education. We believe that STEM education is the key for many of these young men to advance in their career goals. And so we have 4 technical specialties that we are training young men for advanced careers. One of those is cybersecurity, a second one is biomedical sciences, a third one is engineering, and the last one is computer game design. And we combine those with what we call 21st century skills in things such as workplace protocols, financial management, and presentation skills, and other types of soft skills, which are all designed to give our young men a competitive advantage over their peers once they graduate. So today we are meeting with a supervisor-elect for Prince William County. We're very excited to have him here with us today, and I'd like to just start today's program by having him introduce himself and give us a little background.
Sure. Well, thank you first, Eric, for inviting me onto the program. When you first told me about what this channel does and the programs and what you guys have been working with, I was really, really excited to be part of it. So again, my name is Kenny Boddye. I am the supervisor-elect for the Occoquan District, which is if you're not familiar with where the Occoquan District is in Prince William County, it goes from the town of Occoquan, so around that 95 area around the town of Occoquan, right when you come over from the Fairfax County line, goes through Lake Ridge and goes all the way out to the Yates Ford area, Signal Hill area near Manassas. It also dips down on the eastern side of the Prince William Parkway, down where Minnieville and the Smoketown Road is, and the very southmost tip is Potomac Mill. So it's a large district, very diverse, and I'm so excited to start representing the folks that that live in the Occoquan District. So why I decided to run for office. Although I've been involved in politics since I was a teenager, I had a really good government teacher, I've been here and there, 2 things that really defined my trajectory there. The first was the election of Barack Obama. To see someone who actually looks like us, who comes from a background like that, being able to not only become the very first person of color, be a national Democratic nominee, but to become president. And all of the work he was able to do made me a lot more comfortable in my skin, but also made me realize I can make a difference in so many people's lives. The second one is 3 years ago, I lost my mother to homelessness and substance abuse. So that was an aha moment for me, that I went from being an activist, being someone that works on campaigns, to sort of living my life but dabbling here and there, to we need more people at the table who live our lives, who have a diverse experience, who know the struggle, and who can really sit at the table and make those decisions, not from just knowing people, but being from that background.
And you have something else in common with Barack Obama. You're both community organizers.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what's one of the things that you worked on as community organizer? I think mostly in political campaigns.
Yes, it's mostly in political campaigns. So I have worked for all stripes of candidates. I've worked for gubernatorial candidates. I've worked for Senate candidates. I've worked for local candidates. So I've worked on the whole spectrum, federal candidates, presidential. I worked for President Obama's 2008 and 2012 elections. 2008 when I was at Georgetown, where I graduated, and then 2012 in Tampa, Florida, where I was living at the time. But also other advocacy too. I got my major feet wet during the fight for the Affordable Care Act. So really fighting for health care reform, which came full circle last year when we got Medicaid expansion passed here in Virginia, and then criminal justice reform, which is near and dear to my heart. I have an older brother who's been in and out of the system since he was a teenager, and he never got a fair shot because as soon as he tried to get back out, tried to get his life together, couldn't because he had a record. couldn't go into higher education or get a job because he had a record. So I started organizing around making our criminal justice system more fair as well.
Okay, I remember Amy Ashcroft, someone else who was running on that when she was running for it. When you won,
yes,
who was the first person you called who wasn't in the room?
Sure. So although I wasn't able to reach him at the time, my dad.
Okay.
My dad lives in California. Like I said earlier, it would have been my mom had my mom still been around. Mm-hmm. But it was my dad, because it was one of those things where obviously you think of your parents first, but to know that I decided to go down this path in memory of my mother, one, because of how she fell through the cracks, but two, I promised myself that unlike her, I wouldn't get to the end of my life and have regrets on how I lived my life. Live up to my full potential, live for both of us. And to be able to tell my dad that this path that I chose is actually progressing. I can actually take that next step into helpfully living my mom's legacy. Because she was a nurse. She believed in caring for people. So I want to further that.
So, so much in your life. It'd be a great story to tell guys in Future Kings. I'm hoping that you'll come to one of our meetings and speak to them.
Absolutely.
But for today, there are some things in your campaign that really resonate with the Future Kings organization. I'd like to start with one of them being the Jobs and Economic Development platform that you kind of ran on, and see if we could tie it back to some of us who have a vested interest in that as well.
Right.
So you talk about a diversity business council. Sure. Could you kind of talk about that, what it is, how you work, and why it's so important to have that kind of council?
And I really, really appreciate that question, Eric, because as everyone in this county knows, we have one of the most diverse communities in Virginia in this county. We are the largest, first, and only minority-majority locality in Virginia. The only one where it's majority non-white. We have folks from all walks of life. 1 in 4 people that live in this county come from another country, immigrants. We have folks of all colors that are in this county. But from what I've seen and from my experience, their voices are not always at the table when it comes to economic development decisions. Growing their businesses whether they're small, medium, large, whether they're veterans, women, immigrants, folks of color. And so my idea from that is, instead of us just talking about it, let's embrace that diversity and actually have those folks at the table. Now, that might be a slow build process where they may start as a council that advises me directly in my supervisor's office. But then once we start to see successes, we get wins with that, we start to see that grow, it can be something we can talk to my colleagues about on the board on making an actual full-fledged commission with the county government, that as we're going down and making decisions on where we're building businesses, how we're doing incubators and other things, we have those diverse voices at the table so we can start growing our black-owned businesses, or brown-owned businesses, or women-owned and veteran-owned businesses. I mean, the town of Occoquan is majority women-owned businesses. How did they do that? Was it an accident? I don't think so. I just think that there's certain things that we can do in our community to help invest in our people so they can then give back by growing their business. But until they're at that table, how do we really know what they need?
Well, that's great. And I heard you mention incubator, so I'm going to come back to that.
Sure.
But I wanted to go in the other shoe for a minute and go into education.
Absolutely.
And in Future Kings, the majority of our participants come from the eastern side of Prince William County.
Absolutely.
We do draw boys from all over the area, all over Prince William County. We have some as far away as Prince George's County, Maryland. But the bulk of our boys come from eastern side Prince. And there is a well-known disparity between schools on the eastern side of the county and western side.
Yes, sir.
I don't think it's intentional. It's just developed that way.
Yep.
What is it that we can do, or that you can do, to help bring more equity between the eastern side and western side as far as educational opportunities and quality of education?
Well, I appreciate that question as well. You ask a lot of good questions, Eric. But I like how you framed it. It's not an east versus west because they have something that we don't have, and it was an intentional thing. Obviously, as most folks know, we grew as a county out of the eastern end, and we've slowly grown out towards the Brentsville, Gainesville area. And just as technology has advanced, as time has gone on, we have the older schools on this end of the county, in the eastern end. Occoquan Elementary, which is in my district, is one of the oldest schools, not only in the county, but in the entire region. Woodbridge High, one of the oldest high schools in the region. So they don't have the big mall-sized glass schools with the full-on labs and everything that they have in other places like Colgan and other newer schools, Patriot. So what can we do about that? Because we do know, and folks from all across the county, especially ones that travel around it, do know these disparities exist. What can we do? So the school system, they get the money that the Board of County Supervisors gives them. We do have a revenue sharing agreement, which is about 57.3% of all the taxes we collect as a county automatically goes to the school system every year. That's baked in, that's by a rule, an ordinance that we've passed with the school system. But in my opinion, that should be the floor and not the ceiling of what we should be giving the schools in terms of resources. Because we have not over 90,000 kids in our school system. That's a lot of kids. We have a lot of teachers. We have a lot of stuff that needs to happen. And if our current funding and our current resources are only just keeping them, basically with their heads barely above water, we'll never be able to address those equity issues. So what I want to do is I'm going to sit down with our school board chairman, Dr. Barbara Latif, my school board representative, Lily Jesse, and all of these Eastern End supervisors and school board members, and let's create a list, a critical needs list in terms of equity. What do these schools need that they currently don't have, and how can we start identifying funding streams to invest in those, whether that's labs, whether that's facilities. So in Woodbridge High, for example, the sports fields were all really old. They don't have the same tracks and other facilities as some of the other schools have. Their labs, like I said, and other facilities too. And also then the basic things like the equipment they have. In the newer schools, they have full-on labs where they have state-of-the-art equipment and like the smart boards and all this stuff. On the Eastern schools, some of those have been put into place, but most people are running around with carts that have all the lab equipment and stuff, and it's older too. So identifying those nitty-gritty needs on what those disparities are, and us working together as a community and as the two boards to facilitate funding the needs that we need.
That's great. Okay. Another idea, I'm not sure if it's ever been discussed, but it's known that so much of the distribution to schools is done on a per capita basis.
Yes.
Okay, which means that a wealthy school gets the same amount as a not wealthy school. Has there been any thought about maybe changing the formulas so it's based on need as opposed to per capita?
So that has been talked about in the past, and it's something that came up during this election season because that is a real, and that obviously perpetuates those disparities because obviously folks that are doing well already, they get the best funding for the best schools, and their kids get ahead, and they become high earners, and they invest back in their communities. And it's a cycle while the folks that are struggling just to get by sort of stay stuck. Some people break out, some people make it, but you shouldn't have to be lucky to make it. We should have an equal, equitable way of doing this. So I would love to look at that and other ways we can look at these equity issues where it shouldn't necessarily be based on where you just happen to be born or where your family may have happened to move in the county. Because we know that if we give our youth on the Eastern End the same shot as the youth in other places, they will either be peers or they will excel because they come from a more difficult background as a result of that.
Well, that's great. I'd like to circle back to some things you said in the beginning.
Sure.
Specifically about possibly an incubator.
Yes, sir.
On the eastern side of Prince William County, it would be great to have an incubator.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, as part of your jobs in economic development, we know that the majority of businesses in the county, even though we are a minority county,
mm-hmm.
these are typically not black-owned businesses or
right.
brown-owned businesses, and that even the ones that are may be non-technical types of businesses. So one of the thoughts had been having an incubator on the eastern side
mm-hmm.
that could, one, really highlight opportunities and strategies and the mechanics and tools that you need to grow any type of business, but then even be able to focus some of that on technology-centric
sure.
business. maybe have special incentives within the incubator for technology-centric business.
Right.
But so many of the businesses that are small and non-technical need a place to meet. That could be part of the incubator. They may need some support on doing internet research for this or that. Has there been much discussion, or have you thought very much about the idea of an incubator that targets the types of businesses that we're trying to get for black and brown people on the eastern side of the county, and have an incubator that really is focused on helping them?
Right, and I appreciate that question, because I mentioned incubator because, like you said, our current incubator is on the western end, and that's fine. We need that for that community, but once we get closer to the eastern end, there's not as much opportunity there. So would love to see us establish an incubator on the eastern end that really caters to that. But to your point on tech skills, technical, actual, what some consider higher skills jobs, we need to really start looking at that, because we know that, one, we have a very small commercial tax base in this county. The jobs and the commercial base that we have is small, but it's also, to the jobs portion of it, it's all mostly retail, restaurants, service industry jobs, which, not to disparage those folks, they don't pay a living wage in this county. You can't afford to live here on just one $7.25 an hour job. You can't. So when we're talking about empowering our community, especially black-owned and brown-owned businesses, and empowering our folks to get ahead and to get in that middle class, get in those higher-end tax brackets, we have to start looking at those technical jobs. So absolutely, one, we want to incentivize in that incubator targeting those fields. We know that the technical fields and the healthcare fields are some of the most in-demand, fastest-growing fields that are in this region. We should be leveraging that. We have access to some of the best schools in the country around this area. We have George Mason, which is looking at expanding to have a medical school and tech campus. We need to start looking at that and using those relationships to then bake that into our incubator. When you just talk about technical overall, you also have the trade skills, right? You have your mechanics, you have your carpenters, your electricians, your pipe fitters. Those can all be really good paying jobs that we can use to enrich our community. And seeing as someone that's going to finally, after 10 years, finally pay off my college debt, it would be very nice had I been able to go into another field where I get paid almost six figures, which some of these apprenticeship programs get out of the gate, while not having that debt at all. And that's certainly equity and wealth you can build, they can then give back to the community immediately. So absolutely, I would love to see it and partner up with the tech industry, partner up with the medical industry, partner up with folks like Future Kings, partner up with the Black Chamber of Commerce, the overall Chamber of Commerce of Prince William County, and our unions to really bake as much talent into something like that as possible.
That sounds like an outstanding idea, and I would love to be part of whatever group you do decide to put together. In Future Kings, as I said in the beginning, we do have 4 specialties. But so much what our thinking is within our organization starts with middle school, where we are looking at the idea of getting started in middle school toward a post-high school career.
Absolutely. And
not waiting until your senior year in high school to start thinking about it.
Right.
So what ideas can you bring that may involve actually making school from 6th grade on much more job-centric as opposed to non-job-centric, and wait until they're actually in. The CTE program, for example, in the county is good for those people that are in it, but so many people are being pushed away from it. How do we blend more of those post-high school working skills, like maybe that the unions may have or something else? How do we start blending that in and incentivizing middle schoolers to get involved?
Right, because as most folks know, not everyone's going to go into that 4-year education after high school. They're not all going to go to college, not going to go to higher ed from that perspective. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the other thing. Not everyone's built for that, and not everyone has that skill set. Not everyone has that trajectory in their life. But that means then that we should have alternative just as viable pathways, starting, like you said, not when they get into high school, not when they're a junior or a senior or even a freshman or a sophomore, but at that middle school level, because if we can identify that early, then we can start them going down that path much earlier, and they're also enriched and empowered to believe, yes, that's just as viable as going to a university, and we can give you the support you need. So I would love to see it, instead of this sort of hodgepodge Frankenstein monster, for lack of a better term, of this one school has a specialty program here, this one has a robotics club here, us having some sort of center where folks can the kids can can go there after school or as part of whatever their normal curriculum is, to go to a center and have that be baked into their normal curriculum, as opposed to, for lack of a better term, segregating it out to different parts.
Well, I have loved this conversation. I'm really looking forward to working with you. Congratulations again.
Thank you,
on your winning of your election. We're going to be great supporters and be trying to do everything that Future Kings can do to help your incumbency be a success.
Appreciate
okay.
that.
And when do you take office officially?
Sure. So our term of office officially starts on the 1st of January.
Okay.
We are sworn in, and you're invited, on the 6th of January, 6:30 at the Hilton Performing Arts Center. That's our actual swearing in.
Okay.
And then our very first board meeting as the new board is January 7th.
Well, we'll be there with bells on our toes. And one thing I'm going to ask you to do is Future Kings have our annual gala on February the 15th.
February 15th.
It will be at the Harbor View Event Center here in Woodbridge. And you are invited, and I hope that you will attend and bring all your county supervisor friends with us.
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll be very, very honored to have you there.
I'm glad you gave me a couple months to decide what I'm going to wear, who I'm going to bring, get the word out, because like I said, I support everything that Future Kings is doing, and I want to support. So as long as I'm not dead or out of the country or something like that, I will be there.
Thank you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for tonight, that's the end of this program. We certainly thank you very much for your attention. We thank Mr. Supervisor-Elect Kenny Boddye for being here with us, and we look forward to seeing you again at next month's meeting.